Hi, I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for May 7th, 2026. This evening, in the last few minutes of May 7th, I have here tonight, this is Richard's President Trump in support of China President Xi, and Xi confused by Trump and Secretary of State Rubio's conflicting statements. So you have two things going on here. You have President Trump basically supporting President Xi, and then just ahead of his summit with him coming up, that's here. There he is in the Oval Office, and he's thinking about President Xi here, and this is what we're going to get into. And then we have here Marco Rubio here making statements, and on Operation Epic Fury and Project Freedom, which has been suspended by President Trump after a day or two. So, and here we have President Xi, and he's a little confused, and we're gonna go there, and I'm just giving you the outline of what's ahead. And here we go. Now, here we have President Trump in the Oval Office. Okay, there he is, and he's thinking about President Xi in his mind, giving him thumbs up. And he's saying here, this is the introduction here. Richard Trump speaking from the Oval Office in support of President Xi Jinping, that ahead of Beijing summit with the Chinese leader, and heightened tensions with Iran in the Strait of Hormuz, and China refusing to send ships to assist the U.S. in guiding ships through the strait. So President Trump had gone to President Xi, asking him to support him in the blockade of Iranian ships, and President Xi wanted no part of that, and he just said he doesn't want to spark any further ignite any more chaos or upheaval in that strait. So he declined to send in any ships to assist President Trump, following suit with what our allies have done. So with the United States now, President Trump, we find ourselves here basically alone in this confrontation in the Strait of Hormuz with Iran. Okay, it's that I'm laying layer on top, giving you the full picture here, and that's all I intend to do, and you make the call. And okay, with Iran, and China refused to say, okay, I said that, in guiding ships through the strait. That operation being called Project Freedom, okay? That in the wake of on April 20th, 2026, when U.S. forces seized the Iranian flag container ship Tuska. That was the name of the Iranian ship. It was named Tuska, okay? The ship's in the Gulf of Oman, okay? So that's what happened here in the Gulf of Oman, right over here, okay? Here, I'll give you the Gulf of Oman. Here, I always like to, here is the Gulf of Oman, okay? Right over here, okay? Okay, so there was the Strait of Hormuz, and we seized, this is from a past cartoon I did drawing the map here, so I want to give you, we seized a ship in the Gulf of Oman, and here is the Gulf of Oman. You see how close it is to the Strait of Hormuz. Here's Oman, there's the Gulf right here. This is where we seized the ship, okay? All right. Okay, now, getting back to the story here, okay? This ship that was seized was an Iranian flag container ship, the Tuska, in the Gulf of Oman, whose cargo U.S. reports suggest could have been carrying dual-use goods, which may include metals, pipes, and electronics. and all this stuff could be used to make all those missiles and guiding devices and radar systems. That the Iranians are pretty good at that, because they're as good as hitting ships as they are as missing ships, because they fired some warning shots over our ships, and none of them hit. So they're pretty good at firing, of killing stuff off, and of also, in their own way, of firing warning shots without doing any damage. They didn't want to mess with those. That's one good thing. That's one thing that President Trump can claim, that the Iranians did not want to mess with the American ships. They fired, warning shots, like over the bow, you might say, firing shots over the bow of these destroyers that we had sent there, and to guide ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so none of our ships were hit because the Iranians knew what they were doing, and they are very good. They're very good at that. It appears they have very good ways of firing off their missiles. And the thing about it is that in this case, I believe they were cruise missiles. So what the Iranians hit, they hit here again. Going back to the UAE, now here is the United Arab Emirates, right over here. You see, and these are 7 Emirates, okay? And Dubai is like the capital, and here's United Emirates. So here is the Strait of Hormuz. You see, this is the strait right here of Hormuz, right here. We have this projecting into the water, and then you have this bubble coming up, which is the United Arab Emirates. So you have a recipe for disaster. Nature really put in a recipe for disaster. Whoever, I'm just saying, figuratively speaking, So what you have here is this here, this strait here. So what the Iranians did is they targeted, I believe this was a ballistic missile that they fired at some oil facilities in the United Arab Emirates right here, you see. Past, the missiles went to their port, where their oil facility was, past the Strait of Hormuz. So they might have had all their ships and waiting to go because they felt they were beyond the Strait of Hormuz, and they were pretty cool. But the Iranians, they got them after the Strait of Hormuz, and they took this oil facility out here, and they took a lot. Dubai got all these states here: Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, all these states that depended upon America for security got hit, and the bases there, the American bases were hit. So the American bases that were supposed to be an asset for them turned out to be, in this case, a liability. So now you have to ask yourself, what's going to happen next here? Okay, and I'm not going to look into a crystal ball. I just want you to get the information so that you could look into your crystal ball and you can see and you can think about what could happen here. Okay. One thing else I want to add is that in part of their request, the Iranians wanted all monetary exchanges that not to be in the dollar, but to be in the Chinese yuan. Okay. And if that ever happens, where the petrodollars are not used anymore, this is money that's U.S. dollars that are used to all these countries here, and everybody has to exchange and use U.S. money, and that creates a need for them to have this U.S. money and all that business. Then all our the money that we borrow from this people and to pay our debt and everything, all that could dry up. Because the yuan, the Chinese currency, becomes the dominant, replaces the petrodollar, and that's what the Iranians put. They didn't put it into this thing formally, but a while ago they had mentioned that. I don't know. They may have cooled it on that now, but I don't know. But the yuan, if the petrodollar dies and everything gets exchanged in yuans to buy oil, that's going to be a big blow to the American dollar, and to our ability to get financing for our debt, and that you could take to the bank. So I just add that in. So here anyway, here is the here it was. That's what happened here. How smart they were to strike after the Strait of Hormuz, uh, and and figure thinking ahead. So they know what they're doing in that respect. They know what they're doing. Period. And they have good planning, and so we have to get it together. I'm saying I'm not trying. I'm an American, and I was a teacher for many years, taught kids. And when on 9/11, I even went down to my local draft board and tried to enlist. And the guy asked me for my birthday. He told me to go home and go to sleep, because I was like about 51 years old then. I thought I was pretty young. And he said, "No, we don't need you. Go home, take a good nap, have some rest, and drink some tea, and go to sleep." So that was that. But I'm as an American as anybody, and even when the Vietnam War started at the beginning, I was very gung-ho to that, but I was in school then, so I wasn't going to drop out of school and go fight a war. But had I graduated at that time, I would have gone without any kind of resistance whatsoever. I was ready to go. Had I not been in school, had I graduated in that period of time, around 1960, let's say 1965 or so, 66. Anyway, the point I'm making here is that I'm trying to give you the facts, and you decide. I'm not trying to get you or got anybody. I'm trying to hear as an American to say what the story is, and you decide about that. And I feel that's way, in a way, I'm going back to, instead of teaching like I used to teach algebra and geometry, I feel like in a way I'm doing this, giving you some sort of update on what's going on to those of you who don't follow this stuff that much. Okay, so that was that. I'm going to finish that off with that's the end of the map. I gave you what I wanted to show to you. Now here is okay. So what happened on this Tuska? They found goods, I said, that could be of dual use, could be used to manufacture, could be used to put missiles together, electronics, and they even mentioned certain chemicals that could be used in missiles. So it was very suspicious, and I think President Trump confronted President Xi about that. He denied it, of course. I mean, he's not going to say, "Oh, look, President Trump, I've been supplying them." President Xi is putting himself on the world stage, and China as a messenger of peace, and really that's what they want. They do want that, and we'll see what happens. So anyway, so here is President Trump. Here, this is the cartoon. Here, digressing away from the cartoon, I'm going to stick to it here, and here it goes. And he's thinking about President Xi, and President Trump is saying, "I find President Xi to be a tremendous," this is his exact words, "tremendous guy. We get along well. He has been very nice about the war with Iran. In all fairness, he gets like 60% of his oil from the Strait of Hormuz. I think he gets more than that. He's been, I think, very respectful. China has not challenged us, and he wouldn't do that because of me. And he won't mess with Taiwan until I get out of office, let's say in 8 or 9 years." President Trump just the other day joked about him being in office for 8 or 9 more years. When President Trump jokes about something, there's a good element of truth there. So to his ambitions. So I threw that in as a punchline to this cartoon here, and there he says it there. Okay. There it goes. Okay. And there it was. There was President Trump, thumbs up to President Xi. Here's thinking about him in the Oval Office there. And there you have it. And that was the first of the cartoon, the first presentation. The second presentation is here. And we have here Marco Rubio. Now, the thing I want to say, about. I'm going to get into this real. There's an addition to this that I want to express to you, and I want to do it now so I don't forget about it. So the thing about this is that President Trump, he launched this idea of called Project. It was called here again. First it was Operation Epic Fury, and then he said, well, we're now focusing on Operation Project Freedom. And that was designed to protect the ships because we moved from the war began, we were going to get their nuclear stuff and we were going to have a regime change, and we were going to stop them from their group proxies that they've been creating havoc with, like the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon. We're going to fix the world, and now what we're doing now basically is trying to get back to the base level. We're trying to get back to the base of when the strait was open and clear before we launched Epic Fury. So the focus now was on that. So Marco Rubio here went on to say that here I'll read the introduction to you here. Here's Marco Rubio here, and there he is. Here's Marco Rubio, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and he's saying here, I'm going to introduce you to this. Richard's China President Xi confused by U.S. President Trump, May 5th, 2026, post on Truth Social, and Secretary of State Rubio on Operation Epic Fury being over and replaced by Operation Project Freedom, the military securing of passage of commercial vessels through Strait of Hormuz. So that the idea was that we were going to guide all these commercial ships with oil and tankers and stuff through the strait with our destroyers that we were sending over there. Okay, we didn't put the full thrust of our Navy in there. We used destroyers to protect these to escort these ships through the strait. And then again we had the incident where, and then we took that one ship Tuska, and what Iran did was started hitting on the UAE and bombarding that real bad in their oil facility, like I just showed you that. So then the next day, President Trump says he's suspending that. He's suspending that Project Freedom the next day afterwards, and that was May 5th. Now, this could be a coincidence, but on May 5th, okay, the Iranians, they launched in May 2026 while Iran is reviewing the peace deal with the U.S. The Iranians launched the Persian Gulf Strait Authority on that same day, May 5th. They launched that same day that President Trump paused the Project Freedom. That on that May 5th, the Iranians launched this Persian Gulf Strait Authority, which is the Iranian government. What's happening here is that they're taking control of the strait through what they have, through legal structure that they're creating. They're creating a legal structure here, and that is the Persian Gulf Strait Authority. Is the Iranian government agency. It's an agency that they're creating, designed to give control over maritime traffic passing through the Strait of Hormuz. That forces commercial vessels to apply for authorization via internet. So all these companies that send ships there, they have to apply for passage by email to the authority there, follow specific rules and pay tolls, and possibly, they didn't say definitely, but possibly pay tolls to the IRGC Navy, basically changing shipping in the region. So the money, it's called the authority is like a buffer between where it's a buffer, and it goes into the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, which President Trump says doesn't exist no more, but they exist enough to take the money you know, and they got those little boats. Maybe it's only comprised of little boats that they have, and those little boats have been very effective. But they still have the ability. They have again, they have those um, missiles. They have ballistic missiles that go boom, 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 and they go up like that. And then they have the cruise missiles. See, once these ballistic missiles they shoot up, where this technology is unbelievable, that they get this initial boost, and then they just go up in trajectory and like this, and boom, and then they have the cruise missiles which go like this, a little slower, but they go lower and along that way like an airplane, kind of like a guided airplane is the cruise missile. And they got their drones, still have like 40% of their drones left. So they're formidable. They could be a big pain in the ass in that Strait of Hormuz, you know. They're no match for us, but they don't have to be a match for us. All they have to do is create havoc in the Strait of Hormuz, and insurance companies aren't going to back these people who are transporting all this stuff, and insurance rates go up, or they won't insure, and the whole world gets stuffed out of oil and have to do this and that to get around it, or if it's possible. So it creates they're able to do that, you know. So they don't want to give that up any more than they want to give up their nuclear, their enriched uranium, which they have buried somewhere, and we were supposed to get that. But no, but we're not talking about that now. We're trying to get back to the baseline of an open and free Strait of Hormuz. So I'm saying is that May 5th, if you that could be you know, that could be a day, you know, and that's a day that President Trump again said, I'm suspending Project Freedom, and the Iranians on that May 5th came along and said, this is what we're creating here and now. They created the Persian Gulf Strait Authority, you know, which basically is an arm of the IRGC, you know. It's like a buffer there, you know. So there you have it. So now I'm going to get into the cartoon here, and if you're still with me, thank you very much for hanging in there. I would have felt remiss if I didn't give you the full picture, and that's the only reason why I'm doing this, is to give you the full picture, and then you decide how you want to view it. Okay? Now, here is Marco Rubio here, and he's saying, here he is, there he goes, and he's saying, this is word for word, the Operation Epic Fury is over. He's saying Operation Epic Fury is gone and finished. No more bombing. That's what it means, right? No, that's Epic Fury. Fury is bombing and all that business, right? And all those missiles and everything. We achieved the objectives of that operation. I don't know what objectives he's talking about. But we knocked out a lot of their weapons systems, and back in June we took a lot of their nuclear stuff. But they have the uranium that's still buried, and they maintain cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, drones, and they could still control the Strait of Hormuz. So that's all they need, really. You know, it's asymmetrical is what it is, asymmetrical warfare in the Strait of Hormuz, but that's all they need. Okay. So we achieved the objectives of that operation. I don't think so. We didn't. You know, it seems to me like what's happened here is the RGC is now calling the shots, and they've usurped the power vacuum created by the killing of the senior Khomeini, who was the supreme leader, and he's now gone. And what they've done here is basically this man is still. We heard from him the other day. So I think the president spoke to him. Said he spoke to him. So he's coherent, and he's speaking, and he's making decisions. But he's still restricted because he has to go like spec he has to, for everything that goes on, he has to give a letter to this guy, who gives a letter to that guy, who gives a letter to this guy, who goes that guy, and it has to go all the way around the mulberry bush for his own security. He has to do that. So that limits his power. So the IRG, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, in that framework, have usurped a lot of control, because they can instantaneously make commands and have them carried out. So it stands to reason that the IRGC is in control, more so than they had been. So there you have it. So that's who we're fundamentally dealing with because of that situation there. You see? So okay. So then Rubio goes on. We are on to this new project, Freedom. He says. He says that Operation Epic Fury is ancient history. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. Ancient history. We are on to this new project, Freedom, ordered by President Trump to break Iran's blockade. Now he's going to be guiding ships through, and here he goes, and here he is up here, and this is word for word what he said, okay. And now here comes President Trump on Truth Social. Here's President Trump on Truth Social. There he goes. And President Trump here says, this is also word for word. I abbreviated because it was so long and everything, and I didn't see the need to go there. I just wanted to make the point here. So I paraphrased it and took some stuff out. President Trump said a lot more than this. So here he goes with what I felt was relevant to express to you. Okay, he goes, we have mutually agreed that while the U.S. blockade will remain in full force, so the blockade is still in full force, okay, that's Iranian ships, and in effect, Project Freedom, the movement of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed. So the agreement is written on basically a small sheet of paper here, and can be finalized and signed. So the agreement is not broad or anything. It's just like a recipe for chicken soup or something like that, So there's no broad specifications of what's going to be done with the enriched uranium, with this and that, all kinds of technicalities. It's just like a little piece of paper, half a piece of paper, sheet of paper, with broad, hope with broad hopes. Let's just say, okay. Now, and then so Xi, here goes President Xi here, and he's over here. There he is. There's President Xi here, and he's taking all this in, and he's saying here, me no understand American strategy. Rubio say epic fury over, and Trump now say if Strait of Hormuz no reopen, he bomb again. Well, bombing again means epic fury, or else it's a new operation called Trump Fury. I don't know. Maybe it's not epic fury no more. Maybe it's a new thing called Trump Fury, that he's doing this using yet another name, Trump Fury, instead of epic fury, because Rubio said epic fury was ancient history. It was gone. We're just doing that. So anyway, so that's a conflict there, okay, between what they're both saying. Okay, okay, and okay, Rubio say U.S. only into Project Freedom. So Rubio emphasized the importance of Project Freedom here. He said that Project Freedom is now the thing, that this is the new dance. It's like that. Look, everybody's doing the brand new dance now called Project Freedom. It's like that old hit from the '60s, the locomotion. So anyway, so that's what Rubio said. It's all Project Freedom, and now President Trump is saying basically that he's pausing that after a day. I don't think it was 2 days, maybe a day even. I don't know, a day or two, not very long. And then Rubio say only into Project Freedom. Now Trump say he paused Project Freedom because he wants to see if deal with Iran finalized on just one-page memo like recipe for American dish of chop suey. So that he's saying to himself, that's American dish of chop suey recipe that they've got there, and President Trump is calling off his project just because of this tiny little paper that he wants to see if they can finalize that, and that's going to take a long time. It took Obama a very, very long time to get a deal with Iran, and the IRGC didn't want Obama's deal. They never wanted that. It was the Supreme Leader Khomeini, who was alive then, who said, we'll take the deal, so we'll get those Americans, at least we'll piss the Americans off by spinning those things around a little bit, and they'll make them a little nervous, spinning those centrifuges, that we're going to spin some centrifuges for the Americans. They ain't going to like that, so we get our satisfaction there. I think that's what I read that then the Supreme Leader, when he was alive, said. So it was the Supreme Leader who pushed through the deal with Obama. Had the IRGC been in full strength as they are now, you wouldn't have had the Obama deal probably back then, because it was the Khomeini, the Supreme Leader, who pushed it through, the Obama deal, which President Trump threw into the garbage can, you know. So, and now here we are, and Biden couldn't get back on track, which is a failure there. He couldn't get it back on track, and then Trump came in, and here we are today. So anyway, folks, thank you for watching my video. God bless you, and I hope that you got something out of my video, and you think about it, and stay well. God bless you. Hang in there, and hang in there through these tough times, and I'll see you next time. Bye.